we were going to do favorite things in the show. We just have about 10 more minutes. You want to do a favorite thing? Who wants to do a favorite thing? Favorite thing is when we, the hosts, tell you all about things that we felt were super wonderful at some point in raising children. A favorite author, a favorite book, a favorite toy, a favorite activity in the car on long trips and stuff, whatever. So, do y'all want to go first? Dale, you look excited. Go.
Oh, I didn't mean to look excited.
You just jumped. You're like, woo, I want to do this. All right.
Well, you know, the first one that occurred to me was actually a book. My kids, like a lot of kids, got into myths for a while. They were absolutely bananas for myths. And for a while, that was the go-to for bedtime stories. And one of the challenges that a lot of parents talk about is how do you get kids literate about Christian myth, you know, about Christian stories without presenting it in this sort of, you know, hands-off, kid glove way that it's usually presented. And there's a book that I recommend called, it's called In the Beginning, Creation Stories from Around the World. The author is Virginia Hamilton. It's this beautifully illustrated book. And instead of being a book of myths from one culture, it's a book of the same myth from a whole lot of different cultures, which is how did the world begin? Mm-hmm. And so it tells the Greek and Roman myth of the world's origin. It tells the Hopi myth, the Zoroastrian myth, the Hawaiian traditional myth, and so on. And then the Judeo-Christian story is in there. Each one of them is like 2 or 3 pages long, beautifully illustrated. And what happens is we just did one a night, one of these little 3-page stories. And it's like, okay, now we're going to look at the, the trickster myths of I think this was the trickster was the Yanomamo, or I can't remember which one had the story that is included in the book, because there are lots of different tricksters in the mythologies. But that book was an amazing way to present the Christian story just in the context of other myths and legends. And it's not exalted, it's not denigrated, it's just in there. And the kids see that, oh, I see, this is just a bunch of people trying to figure out the world when they didn't have a better way of doing it. Mm-hmm. So you get the deep information about myths, little entertainments, some beautiful pictures, and Bob's your uncle.
Right on, right on.
I can think of some favorite things about this time of year. First of all, Christmas lights. My daughter and I, we love them.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of the blow-up balloon characters, you know, and then you're driving around the next day and they've let the air out, and so they're just like puddles of Santa and reindeer around people's lawns.
That's the name of my next band, right there. Puddles of Santa.
But no, we do love the lights. And my daughter, even though she's only grown up in Texas, just has this fascination with snow and anything snow-like, like icicles. And there was one year where a neighbor must have, or might have been a business, accidentally let off a sprinkler system, and it was a night that, one of the few nights, you know, we had a freezing temperatures, and so it was just like this winter wonderland scene where all these just icicles, you know, glimmering off of the branches of these bushes, and you know, we just couldn't stop taking photos. And of course, she needed to snap one off, and she does this every year and put it in the freezer, so she can always go back to that icicle.
Right? There's something about that, keeping it, being able to keep it. Last time we did this game, Dale, you recommended Neil Gaiman's movie Stardust.
Yeah.
We watched it as a family and loved it. So, yeah, 2 thumbs up. Woo! And as far as the snow goes, yeah, one of our absolutely most magical Christmases was when we went to my in-laws in South Carolina, and it snowed a bunch on Christmas Day. And they were
South
little.
Carolina, wow.
Yeah, right? And it was magical, positively magical. So my favorite thing, whenever you get a child a toy, or the little guys, the infants, like a stuffed animal, a blanket, I don't care what it is. If it has a tag on it, that's what they play with. They don't care about the stuffed animal. They don't care about the rest of it. They just play with that little tag. And I'm sure it's a coordination and a manipulation thing. And so one of my favorite things, and that's why it's on the set, is this sort of toy that's just covered with tags. And I was like, at last, something, someone who has figured it out for real. And it's brightly colored, and there are lots of tags, so the kiddo can sit there and doink, doink, doink on the tags, and it's awesome. So that was one of my favorite things when my kiddos were small. So, yeah. That was favorite things real fast. And I guess now we're down to the point where I have to tell a story on myself. And I don't have to, but I'm going to, as a cautionary tale to all parents. When my son was 2.5, he was a super energetic kid. I had to take him out twice a day and run him like a puppy, or else he just would not sleep at night. And even then, he wouldn't sleep. He did not sleep. And one of his things that he would do at 2.5 was he would love to show how fast he could run. And one of his favorite things to do was to run into streets. And as many times as I told him that that was a bad thing, that, you know, a car would basically turn him into peanut butter and all of the things, he kept doing it. He kept doing it. He kept doing it. I at that point, I had him and a babe in arms, his sister, and I had to carry her because she was that size. And he would run. He'd pull his hand out of my hand and run into streets. And I was just at wit's end. And I said, Cole, my son, if you do this one more time, I'm going to pop you on the butt, because I was just at wit's end. And we were in a parking lot. He loved to test, by the way, too. That was his other personality thing. We were in a parking lot. I had his hand. My husband was in front of me, so he didn't see what was going on. Parking lot, cars were coming out. Cole, sorry, kid, dashed away from me, ran to my husband, and I was holding the baby. I was just terrified that, you know, this was just a mother's worst nightmare to have your kid hit by a car. And so I caught up to him at the car, and I thought, I promised I was going to do this. And so I have to do it. That's how I felt about it, and so I just looked at him and I said, you did it when I told you not to do it. And I went pop on his butt, and he looked at me, and I felt so awful. It was the worst thing. It was probably my worst parenting moment. Don't do it. It's never worth it. So yeah, I have used physical discipline on my son. And I'm serious. It felt ugly. I don't care if you want to say I'm over-exaggerating or whatever. It felt awful. And there's no justification for it. There's no reason for me to do it. I mean, there's always had to be a different way. But anyway, don't do it. Just don't. It's awful.
Yeah.
One of the things that people would say, don't hit your child in anger. Okay. How can you hit your child when you're not angry at them? And I'll tell you what, it's hard.
A lot of people do.
And I know, it's ugly and awful.
A lot of these books talk about that. They talk about, you know, do it in a loving way. Well, you talk about a way to really screw up your kid.
Right. You know, I love you and smack.
I love you. Right. It doesn't make it better.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't.
And there's never an acknowledgement that anything that just happened was wrong. There's never an apology.
Oh, I've apologized to him a million times since then. It doesn't matter. It's still awful. I still feel awful about it. I still wish I hadn't done it. Ugh. Don't do it. Don't do it.